to the first International Brain Data Bank event. This is the first one in 2017, and it is sponsored by the IEEE Brain Initiative and other supporters named on the symposium website. I am very sorry that I cannot be there with you in person. With some hands-on equipment that I plan to bring with me, this is due to Russian visa delay, but I welcome your participation in this data bank challenge just as much as all the St. Petersburg local organizing team whose efforts and hospitality have made this event possible for you to experience some state-of-the-art neurotechnology elements with a focus on brain signal data. And I will explain this to you in my tutorial today. We prefer to call this event challenge instead of competition, but you will have award regardless, on the basis that this is an open-ended exploration. You can tackle the brain data bank about its input and output, storage, retrieval, user interface, processing, and application from any angle you see fit. My tutorial today will provide you a basis where the research and standardization are heading in the form of 2 IEEE continuing education units. This is something you might not be familiar with, but at the end of this challenge, you will receive 2 units of CEU granted by IEEE. So I suppose you can put it in your resume list and hopefully show up around your colleagues. So this tutorial will set a common understanding of the latest trends of commercial and open source tools in neurotechnology. As we have encouraged you to start earlier than today, hopefully you come prepared as much as you can, and you can bring your knowledge and creativity about this wide open area with rapid advancement. It is really up to you to present tomorrow after 24 hours of hard work, subtracting some time that you can manage to sleep tonight. It's up to you how many hours you want to spend. I guess up to a day. And then you will present your findings and your innovation, either positive or negative, of the particular aspect in your project. You have defined your project more or less in your registration about the brain data bank issue. So let me show you what I would like to cover in today's tutorial. The goal of this tutorial is to capture brain signal input and output to address the feasibility and proper path for brain data usability and analytics. So let me stop right here for a moment. How's the sound? How's the audio, Kirill? Is it clear?
Yes, very good. Narisa,
okay.
As I remember, you have videos to show, right?
Yeah, well, that's later. No, that's for the keynote. That's not for today.
Ah, okay.
Today is the tutorial.
Because if you have some videos, you can send links to the chat so we can show them on YouTube directly on this computer.
Oh yeah, there are videos for the headsets because I couldn't bring those to you. So the best I can do for you is to show you the videos. The videos are pretty self-explanatory. We do that during the break. Correct. Okay, but this is the outline I intend to cover today. I will go through the landscape of brain EEG data sets, the background, brain-computer interface, signal data contrasting and processing, and the accuracy involved and certain gaps. Okay? And this will lead to the exposure brain data bank requirements in terms of metadata considerations, user-centered applications over internet, and some early attempts for interoperability among terabytes of brain signal data scattered around the world. Believe it or not, there are lots of them. Since I think you can start as early as 1990s, and there are more coming up on a daily basis. We have provided a data set from University of California, San Francisco, for you to examine a case study using a neural game called Neural Race to assess memory capacity between young and old people for multiple tasking. Okay, so that's the case evaluation. And this is one well-documented topic you can spend efforts on during this event if you choose to do it. And I will then describe the environment and the tools to make your investigation easier. If you are familiar with those and if you have them set up, that will be wonderful. That can really allow you to spend some meaningful investigation with the data sets you have in hand. But if you bring your own, that is fine as well. So I would also touch base on the latest standardization document on EEG data interoperability. And you could also use that as a template for you to define what's helpful with a data set, with a brain data set. And you can create some code modules if you would like to do it according to the standard. Those are all possible outcome of this challenge. Okay, so let's move on. So let's talk about the background. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this topic, but we can go through this rather quickly. Okay, so I will describe the wavebands, the EEG wavebands in the brain topology, the density and spatial and temporal correlations, and some examples of testing what your brain is thinking when you want to raise your right hand, for example. And I would show you the flow of local and remote data storage and retrieval involving internet connectivity. And eventually we would like to see useful big data analytics based on these data sets. Okay, starting from very basics. So there are 100 billions of neutrons exist in our brain. When massive neutrons fire simultaneously as brain responds to specific event, then there's the primary current and secondary current that are generated. And these are actually creating a potential, okay, that can be measurable from the scalp, okay. So there is a voltage potential, or there's what's defined as the event-related potential, ERP. That is in the magnitude of about 5 to 10 microvolts. Okay, and this is very low signal. And because of this, the tissue and the scalp and all the other material in between, the artifacts, the noise, can be as high as 100 microvolts. So this literally says the noise is about 20 times more than the actual signal. So the challenge is not only the low signal, high noise, but also time after stimulus. One can be stimulated by light, by audio, video, pictures, or whatnot, material, and also by the desire or by movement. Okay, movement of your limbs, movement of your body. So it is not easy to really tackle the low signal coming out of the brain. However, there has been long time research along this, and there has been a standardized modified combinatorial nomenclature, MCN, that is defining various places around our brain. You know, this being the nose, 2 ears, your head. Can you see my cursor? Yes. You can see the cursor, right? Okay. And the tail, you know, the back of your head. So the brain has been specified as having all these locations. Okay, started from very simple topology, but one can actually grow it, and this is actually internationally agreed topology to measure brain signals from various areas. And basically the brain is divided into half, okay, the left half and the right half. And we all know the left half controls our motions on the right-hand side of your body and the opposite for the right-hand side of the brain. So these sensors were added from the center of the brain, and they have specific meanings, or they have functions that are believed that correspond to our brain thoughts or desires or just emotion. Okay, so a simple example. Okay, if you want to move your limbs, you want to move your right hand, you want to raise your right hand, or you want to lift your foot or your left hand, it is studied that C3, CZ, and C4, these particular locations are strong control of the motor movement. Okay, so I want to start really simple. So let's take C3 as an example, and I will walk you through about the brain signal. I hope this information is new to you. If you know about this, let me know, then I can skip it. You want to go through this, right?
Будем слушать?
Yes or no?
Будем?
Yes?
Let's make it short. Let's make it short.
Okay, you want to make it short?
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, we need to go through these, and but first of all, EEG is typically divided into many bands. Many of the measurements are actually expressed in 8 bands, but here I list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. You can take a subband within each band, and it's really measured at a very low level of frequency. And there has been some interpretation and commonly accepted brain functions associated with each band, you know, such as listed here: asleep, calm and relaxed, and for this band, calm and relaxed. For this beta wave, busy, churning, concentrating, and these are somehow publicly recognized. And one major band that's associated with the limb movement is highlighted here in red, which is called the mu wave, that actually covers 8 to 12 hertz. So I'm going to take you through an example using the mu wave. The others I have the reason to indicate them here because I want to show you the BCI devices that are really dependent on these. Most of the commercially very popular BCI, brain-computer interface headsets. Okay, so you take the raw EEG at the location C3. This location, you can also name that as channel, which is really trying to move your left hand. Okay, so this is the raw EEG you have here, and a typical band power processing goes through this. Okay, this is very rudimentary, but it explains the process it goes through before one could actually conclude that this is the feature that the brain wants to move your right hand, the left hand. Okay, you know, we're talking about C3. C3 is actually on the left, so this is actually moving the right hand. Okay, sorry about that. So you went through band pass filtering to filter the mu band, and then you do power estimation, and then you do temporal average, and then you extract the feature that indicates that the brain is this signal corresponds to the desire to move your left hand. Okay. So I'm just showing you a very rudimentary algorithm, but the typical digital processing models for brain processing has numerous models. You can number them in the hundreds. Here I'm listing some more obvious categories. And starting from steady-state auditory evoked potentials algorithm back in 1981, and all the way, you know, through, I'm sorry, I need to go back, all the way through 2017, there's still new algorithms that have been created and experimented. So it's a long history of how reverse engineering a brain signal, trying to understand what brain is trying to do, or trying to mimicking and recreate the brain to do that thing. So these algorithms are very sophisticated and complicated. I do not necessarily have confidence in these signal processing algorithms, but they've been studied extensively around the globe, trying to make for the major function of disease, okay, brain disorder, disease. So for better or worse, the algorithms have been very complicated, but let's look at how you could actually get the signal out of the brain. Okay, people are familiar with the picture on the left-hand side. You know, it has, you know, as I have shown to you before, the topology allows you to put in 72 standard sensors. You can go even far. But this one, the picture on the left-hand side shows you a rather numerous sensor headgear trying to extract the brain signal. And here we're not talking about invasive, we're talking about non-invasive. Basically, you can measure the brain signal without having an operation on yourself. So these are all glued on you. So this has been used in the hospital, and the device and the whole operation is rather capital intensive. Technology moves forward, and these electrodes nowadays can be built by using rather cheap sensors, and the sensors are advancing rapidly too. Cost-wise, they go down, and functional-wise, they become more reliable and easier to use. So you have probably seen headgears like this. This is a headset, okay? And this is the product emotive. So people are using these, wearing now, to play games or to do meditation. The equipment I intend to bring to you are of this sort, okay? We're not talking about this. But understanding that equipment like this has contributed and actually was the original approach of brain-computer interface. Okay, so out of those gears, what you see are, first of all, I'm showing you an example. I want to get to the data. Okay, I want to get to the brain data. So this is what you typically would get as raw signal. And out of this raw signal, you try to filter them and separate them into various bands. And this one shows the alpha band. Okay, just as an example. And you do your algorithm. These are simple algorithms that are showing there. But remember what I have shown you there in the previous slides. It can be much more complicated, particularly when you have many sensors. How do you actually combine and separate signals from various sensors would be a huge challenge. Okay, one way to deal with this complicated measurement would be to use the color scheme. Like what's shown here. You get all these signals, and you don't know which one is important. So there's the Spearman's color scheme. So you look for the top, okay, say the red color. The blue color might mean that your brain is not really doing anything. And the top color red might actually represent that your neurons are firing and firing after firing, and the brain activity is very high. So basically by the color scheme, this is one way one could actually look at the data and make something more meaningful. Okay? So to actually go into more details of some of those sophisticated algorithms. So if you want to find out the cognitive aspect of the brain, you could use principal component analysis as what I've shown before. I don't expect you to remember all the methods, but principal component analysis is one of the common methods people use. And look at how you could analyze the thing, given that you have many sensors and you have all kinds of environmental factors that you conduct the test or gather the brain signal. And these can be stimulus, performance issues, audio or language, or even spatial. How you distribute your sensors, and also including the memory. Okay, the memory that's involved in this brain recognition, this cognitive function performed by the brain. And you take the principal components out of your brain signal, and you you apply the eigenvalues of it. Like in this case, 10 principal components were actually extracted from the signal diagram. And then you color code them, okay, by this Spearman's correlation. So now you're looking for these areas. Okay, these would represent the highlight of the major functions the brain tried to convey. So it's not an easy task at all. And these things really prevented broader usability of brain data set. So this is actually the time I plan to have intermission. Now I see that we, how far are we into this? We're only 30 minutes into this. But this is the time, Korea, I was trying to show the video. Now, since I'm only 30 minutes into it, should we just continue for another 15 minutes and we go back to the video?
Yes.
Maybe that would be better. Okay. I don't see anybody dozing, so you're still wide awake and you can take a few more. Okay. So the focus is on how do we make the brain data sets usable, shareable, and to do useful analytics and to extract meaningful information out of the brain data sets we have. So this is the diagram that shows. I showed you the headsets that extract the brain signal. So this is really the user side. Okay, you put these headsets, or you put the electrodes on the scalp, and you take the information, you take the signal, the EEG signal, and you store that in local in your PC or in your client PC, and you can share that. Most likely you have your local area network in your lab, so you pretty much can share the brain signal locally. Okay, that's what people normally do. The brain signal is with respect to one individual, and most of the time, the individual is a sick person. Okay, somebody who has who has a stroke, somebody who has Alzheimer's disease, somebody who has a brain disorder, basically. Okay, but these equipment are not really for that. But most of the data taken actually are from the hospitals of the disease nature. Now we use these headsets. I haven't finished with this chart, sorry. We use these headsets. We start to take normal people's brain signal, and we try to use it for games or for video triggering. Okay, so in that case, it's not just you, a person. It could be actually in a group setting. You're not just taking one brain signal from one individual. You're trying to compare, and you're trying to do something with maybe a group signal, EEG signal reaction. So in that case, you have to consider about the storage, not just local. And I'm hoping, okay, we could actually have a common storage. Every time I click, I guess I advance to the next slide. I want to see how the storage can be handled. And I think you all want to see that too. Because doing some of these brain signal gathering is quite a lot of effort, and it requires a lot of money to do that too. Now, it would be nice if we can actually have a bigger database, sharing among all efforts from all institutes, all universities, and look at the data and do meaningful analysis based on multiple users. And then we can do classification, standard classification. We can define the user state. We can search. We can do analytics. And we can have user interface easier to visualize what's going on. So this is really the whole data flow of brain signal that the IEEE is trying to advocate. So now let's look at what we can do, or what has been done in the commercial, in the industry with these headsets. So this diagram is exactly the same as before, but this one actually shows at least 4 products coming out of the market. Okay, the headset, and that's the first step. We can extract the brain EEG signals. So starting from the simplest one. Okay, the one at the left lower corner, this is from NeuroSky. It's called Mind Wave Mobile. So it's something that doesn't have to be attached by wire. You can move around. You know, this is like your smartphone. You can wear this and you can still move around. So this device called MWM actually uses only one sensor. Okay, it's charted in yellow, and the sensor is actually put right at your forehead. Okay, right above your nose. And this is the earliest headset that's available, and that claims to actually detect whether you can be focused. Okay, how accurate it is a big question. Okay, but this one is the first one. and they have been used by many organizations for leisure use, education use, and also for some heavy duty disease treatment. But you cannot, it's very difficult to just rely on one sensor for this whole thing. The next headset, BCI, you people know BCI, right? Brain Computer Interface headset, is Muse that I'd like to introduce to you. And Muse uses 4 sensors, and the location of these 4 sensors are actually here, indicated by the red circle, okay? And Muse has been very popular. Muse has actually had more than 1 million users in the year 2014. So now I don't know how many they have now. It must be much more than 1 million. And the function of that Muse headset based on the EEG measurement was to distinguish whether you are calm or whether you are restless. Okay, basically it's being used as a meditation device to relieve stress. The inventor of this inventors of this are very innovative. They're based in Canada. Okay, the next popular BCI headset is manufactured by Emotive, and they have 2 versions. One is Epoch, and the other is Insight. Insight is the more recent, the new release. So this Insight has the more advanced and simplified in a way usage and advanced technology in building it. And it uses 5 sensors. Okay, so I'm not going to spend any time on their older product that uses 14 sensors. I just want to show you the 5 green circles here that Insight is using. And again, they have been using this for various functions. And again, the most distinct function is to differentiate attention versus not focused random brain, random mind. Okay, so I have spoken about the C3, CZ, C4 that is shown here. That was the simple example, and the actually industry grade headsets extracting EEG waves are using 1, 4, or 5 sensors, of different locations. But let's see, pretty much around the periphery, okay? So now let's look at what they actually give to you. This one sensor, this is the NeuroSky, MWM. So this is what they provide to you. Okay, after all the difficulty of extracting the EEG signals, they show you this, and this is not dynamic. I only take a snapshot because I have to project that to you, not in real time. The device itself will show you in real time. This is a snapshot. So after they extract the raw EEG signal, they will show you the various bands. Okay, there are 8 of them, and it's delta, theta band, low alpha, high alpha. You remember the bands for these? Pretty much between 1 to 30 hertz. Okay, and there's the low beta, high beta. We're getting into higher bands now, starting from your low band all the way up to higher band. But this gamma, low gamma is 30 hertz, and high gamma probably goes up to 100 hertz. We're still talking very low hertz, low frequency. And these things jump up and down as you as the headset detects your brain function, and they come up with this indicator here. Okay, so this one shows your attention level, and this one shows your meditation level. So that's what they do. Pretty slick, actually. But the stability and the reliability of these, nobody can tell. Okay. So the next one I show here is the mutes produced by interexons. So they don't really have very elaborate user interface to show you the brain signal. But here they show you all of them together, the raw of them. And then they filter it into theta, okay, theta band. So theta band, they actually, remember, they use 4 sensors. So this is the theta band signal coming out of each sensor. So based on this, they do interpretation. And we should be able to make our own observation as well. So if all this signal data become available to us, then we can all derive our own interpretation, based on the fact that these are not really proven signs. They are good indications, and their application is very innovative, so they can sell the product. As far as the fundamental brain signal recognition and the cognitive functions, it's still quite a mystery. Okay, now I want to move to devices that are more than just a game or toy, like what I have shown you before. I call those perhaps more toys than actually rigid measurement device. So here is I want to show you the data set from UCSF. I assume some of you have read the article, but if you haven't, this is a good example to show you what University of California in San Francisco has gathered under Professor Ogoria and Grizzly. They have done 6 months of experiment based on a game they designed called Neural Race. And they used a headset that consists of 40 sensors, okay? And this is what they have gotten to reflect the EEG signal. And of course, they might not just taken the EEG signal the same way as Muse or MWM or Insight have been done. They are, I believe they actually have the fMRI data, the capture of the images, because they were using 40 sensors. Okay, it's not easy to just stream a single the EEG signal coming out of single sensor. They actually have software that translates the topology of the brain into graphic platform and try to put the signal, EEG signal measurement density onto the graph. So they came up with these graphical display, which is quite useful for us to look into complicated interaction of the brain function. So out of all this, this is a time series, as you can tell. So what you're looking for, as I indicated before, you rely on this color chart. There's so many things going on, and the platform that is built based on MATLAB and EEG Lab would allow you to output the composite, the composite brain signal in this fashion. So at the time of 360 to 400 milliseconds, into your playing of the game, Neural Race, you see this heightened area here. So this reflects the performance of older adults. Okay, this whole group of charts is taken from a group of older adults, probably about 20 of them. Okay, people of age 50 and above, something like that. And this is a composite drawing of that. So you see that the older adults, when they play this game, which requires multitasking, okay, requires high memory capacity and multitasking, hand-foot coordination or whatnot. And the performance peaks after 360 milliseconds into the game. Okay, so what does this really tell you? It doesn't tell you a lot until you see the next chart. So this is a similar display, but this is taken the composite effect out of another group of younger adults age from 20 to 30 something, okay, college age adults. So they were playing the same game, okay, using this 40 sensors headset over a period of time, and all the signals were gathered and charted and processed into this chart, consisting of a time series. And here you look at their performance, the peak performance is here. Okay, I hope you can see that clearly. Can you see that? Can you spot this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is not exactly red. Okay, the red means it's really active. This is at least the most alert situation out of this color scheme. So you see the peak performance here is actually happening at the time series of 280 to 320 milliseconds. So the conclusion they have drawn out of these two charts, which is a processing of numerous huge amount of data that is about, I would say about 60 gigabytes, okay, somewhere around there, 60, 80 gigabytes. And their conclusion was that the younger adults can perform the game at an earlier time, a difference of about 80 milliseconds ahead of the older adults. Okay, so this was a significant finding, and it was published in the Nature magazine. And who is going to use this for what, and how do we go from here? All those questions are worthy questions to ask and worthy questions for us to explore in the future. So let's look at the issue of signal output. Okay, I talk about the signal being very low with lots of noise. Okay, it's due because of the volume conduction in the head. In order to increase the actual signal, okay, there's really no way for people to boost the energy within a brain. But you need to raise the signal with respect to the noise. So we don't have a whole lot of means to mechanically or to physiologically stimulate the brain to release more energy. So the best we have gotten is that meager signal, and scientists start to use their imagination by applying mathematics, complex mathematics, to second guess what was really going on at the beginning. And this is called the inverse problem, okay, inverse source reconstruction, and using statistical models, source separation, trying to backtrack what the brain function is really about. Okay, so this is, to me, all guesswork, okay, and you have to make a lot of prior assumptions, and you are under a lot of constraints when you make the measurement. So the correctness of the solution really rely on the correctness of the assumption, and it has a lot of uncertainties, a lot of challenges, and the setup is not trivial. So I think it's probably about time for us to take a break now. Before I move into this, okay, let's take a break for now. And Korea, we have those videos we can play, or if people want to just relax and then talk about this and raise questions, for now among yourselves, we can do that. Let's take a 15-minute break for now before we move to this one.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah, you can play the video or you can just pass the links to that. I don't see everybody bring their PC. Does everybody have their PC?
No, we have PC in our working room. Narisa, can you send link to chart? Link to the YouTube video.
I have given you the link before. You don't have them?
No, because Kirill is out here. I can call him.
Oh, they're not there? Okay, so you want me to send you the link?
Yeah, can you send them now?
Send it now through chat, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing the screen, or let me see how I can do that. Yeah, I can get back here. Okay, so these are the links, or maybe I can show you this one. Yeah, at the back here. These are the links. So you want to go through chat. Where's my chat? My chat is here. So I'm going to send it to you. Send to Kirill. Okay, I'm going to copy these. Did it copy everything? Did it copy everything? I suppose it does, right? Okay. You saw the whole thing, right? Okay. So I sent you one for now. And I'm going to send you more. You can play that one for now.
Okay, we got them.
You got them, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to send you a second one. Okay, the first one actually compares all three of them. No, hold on. No, the first one was actually about mutes. About mutes. And the second one is also about mutes. The difference is it shows different signal snapshots, okay, at different times, and explains to you how you can use it. I sent you a second one, didn't I? Okay. And then the third one is a comparison. So why don't we start with the first one?
No, Narisa, it's the same one. You send the same one link.
I sent you the same one?
Yes.
They're the same one, but they're of two parts. Are they the same?
Yeah, they're the same.
Okay, how about the last one? The last one is a comparison of all three. The Muse, the Mind Wave Mobile, and the Insight Emotive headset.
Okay, so now we have a 15 minutes rest. Someone who wants can watch the video, right? And after that you'll continue your lecture, right?
Yeah. So they can watch the video, or they can do something else. They can have some chat among themselves. They can, I suppose you have some snacks there, or you have to go to take water or go to the bathroom.
Okay, Narisa, I'll show the last video. So we have a 15 minutes for that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
People are not moving away, huh?
Not really.
Good. I see somebody who's moving. I don't want you to get too tired for the second part. You need to stand up and stretch. Stand up and stretch. You can stand up and watch the video.
Да, ребят, мы запустим видео, кто хочет.
Hey, it's Dr. Cody Rawl with Tech for Psych. If you're watching this video, chances are you're curious how devices like this personal EEG device actually work. In this video, we're going to talk about the different electrode sensors on this device, how it gathers the brainwaves to produce an EEG signal, and then how the device filters and amplifies that signal to create the brainwaves that we can actually use to analyze. Personal EEG devices like this actually picking up brainwave activity. How are they picking up the electricity that comes from the brain? Well, it's estimated there's over 100 billion neurons in the human brain, and at any one time they can be firing. So they're sending electrical activity down axons from one neuron to the other. And if enough electrical activity builds up on the outside of cells, devices like this can detect them. Typically it happens with pyramidal cells. You got these big columns near your skull, and a lot of electrical activity can build up on the outside of those. In the past, we've had to use paste or electrolyte gel in order to get the energy to cross the barrier between your scalp and the electrode. And in medical grade devices, we still use this. It's called electrode paste. But the cool thing about these is that their manufacturers, their designers, claim that they've created dry sensors sensitive enough to pick up electrical activity without having the paste. And this has made the consumer EEG product possible. If you take a look at the Emotive Insight, for instance, what you see right here, this green part, is their dry polymer electrode sensor. Now they claim that it can pick up the electrical activity without wet paste. And in my experience, it's pretty good at it. These devices actually do pick up brainwaves. And we're going to talk about how these devices actually work. So before we dive into how these devices actually work, I want to talk about the electrode placement system. The electrode placement system is important because if you get different results with different groups, you want to be able to compare the results. That way, when you see a designation for an electrode, you know exactly where in the brain it's supposed to be measuring. So the international system is called the 1020 system. And it consists of using measurements of the head. So you use anatomical landmarks like the nasium above the bridge of your nose. You use the inion, which is a bump in the back of your head. And also the periauricular areas above your ears. You measure that, and then you break it down. And the electrodes are placed up around your head, either 10% or 20% away from each other. That's where the 1020 comes from. Now when you look at the measurements, there's either a letter or a number. The letters correspond to what lobe of the brain the electrodes are supposed to be measuring. So you see an F, it's corresponding to frontal, T is for temporal, P is for parietal, and O is for occipital. The numbers are more arbitrarily placed. You've got odd numbers on the left and even numbers on the right. If you look at these personal EEG devices, they actually follow this 1020 system. Say with the Muse, you've got these sensors on the front and you've got sensors behind the earpieces as well. So if I'm going to put this on, and the Muse website clarifies this, and I talk about this in my brain mapping video as well. The frontal electrodes are frontal polar. That's what you designate them as. And then the ones behind your ears are temporal parietal, and that corresponds to this corresponding brain areas. So the reason why I bring up the placement system is that when you look at brain waves, you need to be thinking of combinations of electrodes, not single electrodes. I think the easiest way to think about these devices is to think about them as a simple circuit. If you go back to your college physics days, basically you have a positive end with a loop, some resistance, and then a negative end. And then within that is a battery, right? There's three different measurements in a circuit. There's voltage, there's current, and there's resistance. Voltage equals current times resistance. The easiest way to think about a simple circuit is a water analogy. So if you have two different tanks of water, one above the other, and you have a pipe connecting the two, basically the water tank that's high has a more potential energy. So that would be like a higher voltage in the circuit. The pipe connecting the two is going to have water running through it. The amount of water that's running through it is the current, and the width of the pipe is going to be the resistance. Obviously the bigger the resistance, the smaller the pipe, the less the current. And the amount of water that runs through it is going to be the pressure difference between the two, and that's voltage. Now voltage is measured in ohms. And with that circuit, what you're looking at is the active electrodes on these EEG devices is the positive end of the circuit. You're having electrical activity in the brain that's building up on neurons close to the scalp. And that electrical energy is influencing the electrons in the circuit of the device itself. As I said before in this video, any brainwave that you see on a computer is actually the comparison between two active electrodes on an EEG device. So let's take a medical grade device, for example. I was trained on the Nexus system for neurofeedback. If you look at the Nexus system, an easy setup that they recommend is one active electrode on the forehead and then one reference electrode on the earlobe. So why the electrode on the earlobe? Well, on your earlobe, there's hardly, if not none, electrical activity. So when the two leads feed into the box called the amplifier is looking at the difference between the electrode on your head and the electrode on your ear. Basically what's happening is the electrical activity in your head is causing alternating current, and that's changing the voltage difference between the active and reference electrode. That voltage difference influences the amplifier, so it feeds into this box that's taking the analog signal, which is the alternating current, and turning it into digital information. It's looking at the analog current and saying, okay, it's moving back and forth, this alternating current. I'm going to turn it into this system of ones and zeros, and then the computer takes a look at that and then graphs it as a EEG wave. So the different oscillations are actually voltage changes between the two electrodes. If you look at a circuit, you need to complete the circuit, right? The negative end, it's a ground. And often with the Nexus system, they'll just put the ground right on your head. So you have the active electrode on your head and then the reference electrode on the earlobe feeding into the box. The box is taking a look at that signal and then graphing out the difference between the voltage. And then the ground electrode, which is on your head too, is just completing the circuit so that the circuit can keep going and the box can keep analyzing the signal that's going on. And the box is kind of like the resistance in the simple circuit. It's reading what electrodes are coming through, how they're alternating with the current, and graphing that for our brain EEG wave. Now, if you look at these personal EEG devices, you can almost see a simplified version of that. This is the MindWave Mobile, and let me just put this on here. So as you can see, it's actually got its own ear clips here. So I'm going to put this on. And as you may have guessed, this electrode is active. It's supposed to be picking up the electrons that are coming from my frontal lobe on my brain. And it has a reference electrode in the earpiece. Now, the two signals are feeding in, and I imagine the amplifier is somewhere within here, within the headset, the actual computer chip that's reading the signals and completing the ground circuit. I'm pretty sure the ground circuit is actually in the earlobe itself. As you can see, it actually has, both sides have electrodes. So I think one is being used as reference and the other as ground to complete the circuit. If you look at the Muse headset from Interaxon, it's got the same theory but a different setup. So this middle one is actually the reference sensor. If you remember on the previous device and on the medical grade device, the reference sensor was electrically null. But we actually talked about this in my neurofeedback training too. You can have a reference electrode that's either not reporting any electrical activity or a lot of electrical activity. And as you can imagine, this one right here in the middle, when it's on my head, right smack dab in the middle, it's going to have a lot of electrical activity. But no fear, right? We're just comparing the difference in voltage between two electrode sites. So if you compare one of the active electrodes to right smack dab in the middle, it's reporting the difference, you still get a brainwave, all is good. Apparently, these next two ones out are the ground electrodes, according to the Muse website. And then the further ones out are the two active electrodes on your forehead, the frontal polar electrodes. And then the Muse device is pretty cool. It's got this conductive rubber on the side of the earpiece here, which conducts electrical activity. So these are active electrodes too. They're the temporal parietal reference electrodes. So you've got your frontal polar and you've got your temporal parietal electrodes. And then of course you've got your ground and your reference electrodes as well. And putting on the device, you would hardly think it, but These active electrodes are picking up my electrical brain activity that's feeding into the amplifier. And I'm going to recommend a video that's actually really cool. It's from Adafruit, where they take one of these apart. And you can actually see in one of the earpieces the chip that's used as the amplifier. All the circuits are feeding into the amplifier, the signal's getting converted, and it's going back to the ground electrodes. Pretty neat. So I'm going to recommend taking a look at that video. I'm not going to take apart my headset because I don't trust myself to be able to put it back together. And also, why would I do that when I could just watch the Adafruit video? So that's the theory behind these EEG devices. It's really a circuit. You have active electrodes that are feeding into a chip that is an amplifier that has to do different filters. So it filters out the noise within the room. And one thing that I didn't mention is anytime you're within a room or near electrical power grid or anything that's electricity, you're going to get pollution, electrical pollution. There's actually a band of electricity in 60 hertz range, which is 60 cycles a second, that often needs to be filtered out because it contaminates the EEG signal. Nonetheless, it goes into the amplifier. The amplifier increases the amplitude of the brainwaves that are actually coming from the device and tries to filter out all the junk, and then that gets put on the computer into a raw EEG wave. Now, in the next video, we're going to talk about how the raw EEG wave actually contains all of the information from the brain, depending on where it is on your scalp. But you have to break that down into digestible pieces to actually make use of it. So we'll talk about that in this next video, in which we actually break the brain waves down into their individual components. One last thing that I wanted to cover was the difference between unipolar and bipolar recordings. So remember when I took us through the 10-20 system, why it was important to know where the different electrodes were? Well, that's because you want to know, if you're comparing two different electrodes, what exactly you're measuring. So you can actually do unipolar recordings, which is what we discussed earlier. Basically, you have an active electrode somewhere on the head, and you have an inactive reference electrode maybe on the earlobe. And the difference between those produces a brainwave, which is called a monopolar reading. You can actually take two different active electrodes and compare the voltage differences between those and create what's called a bipolar reading. Now, both unipolar and bipolar readings are used all the time. And different combinations of electrodes on their head might show better brainwaves for certain things. So let's say that you wanted to take a look at attention. Well, there's a lot of brainwave activity in the frontal lobe, which is good for attention, and maybe it's better to use two different active electrodes than one active and one reference electrode for that reading. There's a whole bunch of different examples where that might be true. Now, with these personal EEG devices, they could use any combination of active or reference electrodes that they wanted to produce brainwaves. I'm not sure exactly what combinations they use. That might be coveted information, I'm not sure. But you can use different combinations of electrodes to take a look at different frequencies at different areas of the brain for specific disorders. There's a lot of variability with this, which is why the information is overwhelming at times. But I just wanted to cover the difference between unipolar and bipolar recordings so that you understood what was going on there in case you ran into it.
Okay, Kirill?
No, this is Eugene. No, Kirill.
Yeah, I think we only have time for one video. And the other two, we're going to save it at the tail end. And I'm hoping that people have had a break so that they can continue listening to the rest of the tutorial. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let's pick up my slides now. The video is helpful for you to have a feel on these headsets, but that's not really the focus of this challenge. We want to actually look at the data. Okay, so starting from this slide, now somehow, okay, I guess I wasn't on the slideshow. Let me get to the slideshow. Where's the slideshow? Okay. So somehow this window still blocks the slide. But you can see it. Okay, so basically the video covers this thing, okay, this headset. And we know the information, the signal, EEG signal is processed through this loop, okay? And, you know, tremendous computational processing is taking place here. And with all the derivations of algorithms, and then it's stored someplace, but not officially or not in a standardized way. Most of them are proprietary, or their storage of data are haphazard, not necessarily including all the attributes. The real use is to actually look at the applications. What are we going to do with that? You know, are we going to use this to help rehabilitation after stroke, or are we going to use this for education purposes, assisting the teachers in a classroom of 30 kids? Or are we going to use this to enhance the entertainment, playing games, or watching a movie? You know, all these virtual reality, augmented reality could actually take the brain signal as an input and trigger some actions based on a person, the viewer's mindset. So let's look at the data. Okay, we got the device to take the signal. What are we going to do with the data? What are the elements in the data that are important, that can be important to what future research, future development is going to do? So you look at the signal characteristics. You know, I'm just making a proposal here. These are the elements one can consider. These are not exclusive. Okay, there are other things that might have to play in a role, and they can be simplified or they can be expanded. It all depends on what you want to do. So obviously we have all these bands we have to separate, right? So the signal itself has to be able to allow us to see individual bands. Each band represents different mood, different state of the brain. And you're talking about bands lower than 100 hertz, okay? Filtering and all that, and how many channels you're going to place on the scalp. All these parameters should be carried with the EEG signal. And after that, how do you pull the information? How do you enhance the information? I personally would think that we want to build a learning factor into this. We want to make this database to be able to learn from the previous database or the database from other places for training, for enhancement of the brain recognition capability. Okay, so the algorithms that can be used to process the EEG, sorting it into more components that are more digestible, that are features that can be more representative. The timing, okay, I have shown you the timing difference that was singled out from this group from UC San Francisco. You know, they differentiate the adults' memory capacity versus their motor capability with respect to the older people. So that's one thing they found out. So timing is very important. Depending on when you start counting the signal might actually go through a delayed effect. Actually, I think it is understood that the brain thought might not actually take actions after a certain period in between. We know our minds sometimes think ahead of us, sometimes think behind us. And the data format itself, in order to share information, say I have a small lab to run here in Southern California. I don't have a hospital set up, but I would like to get the data, EEG data from the nearby hospital. Los Robles Hospital. So their neuro sector department gathered the information, but if the data format is not consistent, it would take me a lot of effort trying to use their data. So there has to be some understanding, some specification on the data format. Okay, so we are dealing with sickness situations. We are also dealing with normal situations. So for sickness, for disease situation, for rehabilitation conditions, what kind of states of the brain one can measure, one can test, and one can specify based on the observation of the EEG signals. So here I indicated attention, oblivion, defocus, neglect, random stimulant, these attributes that could play a role in the database, and the marketing driving force on the EEG signal. All these big companies are working on the EEG signal, brain signals, for whatever they have in their own shop for future applications. You know, we heard about artificial intelligence, we heard about this and that. What I really like to do is to look at digital intelligence, okay, based on the EEG. And I never believe that there will be a time when machines will be smarter than people. Basically, I want the people to be in control. So out of the EEG data sets, how do we maintain the ownership of the EEG signal? What part can be really implemented by machines, computers? You know, there are places where computers would be better for us, and there are also places where computers wouldn't be good for us. So there are tremendous efforts involved in using the EEG signal to do marketing efforts. Okay, they want to identify the customer group and profile and find out whether they like or they don't like certain things, or they're indifferent to whatever the new implementation. The trial results based on EEG, so you don't have to, you know, it's not to say that EEG is the only source to tell, but EEG is one of the biosignals that could actually help in this case. You know, we also know that the eyes, you know, the vision and the facial and the voice recognition could all go in the same direction, contributing to virtual reality or augmented reality. And I think the brain signal EEG could have a role in this too. But it's going to take many transformations and many improvements from where we are today. Okay, so for the entertainment usage, there has been trials already. Okay, simple brain input, signal input to make the interactive games or video. And in those cases, you want to identify in the data set what represents a person's happy mode or versus a sad, and a bunch of moods. Okay, and all these things have been studied extensively in physiology, but not necessarily mapping it into EEG signal, and that's our objective, as a matter of fact. So I want to also expand on the states of the mind, of the brain. Okay, so for each state, there could be two conditions, right? The sick brain versus the well brain. There could be even more, but we start with major categories we can tackle. So, you know, if we talk about the state of brain being in three simple categories, you know, these are not cast in concrete. This is just an example for illustration. you have the emotion aspect, you have the recognition aspect of the state. And for all the brain, for the brain to function, there's a big chunk of the memory section that is part of the brain. So all these states can be separated and classified, and for each state, again, you can have various vocabularies for the mood and various commands, actions that could actually allow you to operate something without actual movement of your hands or your legs. Basically, you think, and one very early and quite impressive video of using EEG capability is somebody who is paralyzed and who wants to eat a piece of chocolate. Okay, she cannot grab the chocolate, but when she thinks about eating the chocolate, with all the sensors, the wiring, and all the detection and the big computer processing behind her, she could actually allow a robot hand to hand her the chocolate. Okay, so basically she's moving the robot hand. And we've also heard the examples of people using thinking, okay, just the brain to operate a wheelchair. If somebody who's sitting in a wheelchair and he doesn't have an able hand to push the button, then he thinks about moving the wheelchair forward or backward. Case like that. So in a way, one has to look into the state, and one of the things we can do is actually to define the state. Okay. So there's standards activity going on under the Consumer Technology Association Standards Committee, and one of the format they identified to make sure all the signal formats are in sync. Basically, they all have to start at the same time in order to make the signal more meaningful. So this is one format they actually suggested, which is called the attuned container format. And it actually designs the signals. It actually chops the signals into chunks. And they are basically 6 chunks. Okay, so this is a design that actually tries to process the signal in a standardized and synchronized manner. So you take the time series of EEG signal and you actually sample them, and then you put them in the standard container format. And then we can all share if we all go with this. So one question could be asked is, what's in these containers? Okay, so this standard actually has defined numerous parameters that can be put in the container. So that's one area that one would actually have the curiosity to question, to evaluate, to critique whether those chunk parameters are adequate, or what are they really, whether they will be really useful. So that's, the task is daunting. Okay, it's huge for us to actually look into EEG signal and be able to tell what we are thinking. So there are numerous tools that are developed. Without these tools, our task would become even more difficult. So these are the tools that could be useful for you, and I list them here: the MATLAB field trip toolbox, and there's the public version, and there's also the company organization version. The public version is obviously not as useful. So if the school has MATLAB, that would be one major tool you can depend on. EEG Lab is produced by University of California in San Diego. This has been put together over the last, I would say 5, 6, or maybe even 7 years. It's publicly released in the year around 2012. And the center, this is the Center of Neurocomputational Science in UCSD, and this is indeed open source tool. And this EEG lab has lots of platform tools, modules one can use. You know, you can rely on this for a lot of processing and graphics as well. So, and then more rudimentary would be the LabVIEW. You know, it's more on the hardware side. Not so much of the software tool is provided here. You would have to come up with your own tool. And the BCI lab contains a lot of the more basic tools. Okay, and I talk about these commercially available headsets. You know, the Muse and the Emotive inside the NeuroSky, as mentioned in the video. All these equipment actually have their own software development kit. And if you buy one unit, then you can access to their software development kit. And that would allow you to look into the raw EEG data sets, and you can make your own collection of data sets. You know, there are many companies, and most of these are not open. So somehow you have limited access to what they publish in their website. But to be really effective, you have to buy their equipment and get a license from them. Okay, there are other more usable user interface tools such as Android, the Amazon AWS, and GCP and Python. These would allow you to put together your own software tools for the analysis, for the analytics portion. There are also analysis code that is available through the neurodevelopment, NMF neurodevelopment. So this is the open data that's available through the American National Institute of Health, and they have tremendous amount of data. We're trying to, well, actually all the data are open. So, but it takes quite a lot of effort and know-how to get into these. And they have huge database for 13 well-known cognitive systems. And they have visual, motor, auditory, default modes, salient, frontal, parietal, and single looper-cular and attention systems. So there are a lot of data sets that are available. Now, it's us to dig into this pile, mass, big data, and trying to make use of it. Otherwise, the data would become garbage in a way. There are also open source software package. Okay, so this is getting to more handy tools that are available for temporal network measurement. So this Tenatol, you can download that at this web link to exercise the tools. Okay, so today we're going to look into the brain database challenge, and that's your task with your project. And I have listed these questions on the website. I don't think I need to go through them anymore, and most of you have read this. And if you, as in our preparation Skype conference, we said you can also tackle your own question, but there are many, many questions that are awaiting us to investigate. And this area is still at a rather early stage. But I think in the next 5 or 10 years, things were going to leap really rapidly. So this is the best time to actually look into it and see what we can do with it. Okay, so I have suggested UCSF dataset as a start. The reference is given to you, and there are 80 gigabytes of brain signal data. Kirill, I wonder whether you have downloaded that to a hard disk locally. Have you?
Kirill is not here, but he told me that they are downloaded to the machines that participant can use.
Okay, you haven't downloaded them yet, have you? You haven't,
As
right?
I know, they are downloaded already.
Okay, the download would take hours. Okay, it's a lot of data. 80 gigabytes of data is a tremendous amount of data. So I think this one actually shows you the article. Let me see. So if I go back here, okay, if I go back here, okay, here. So if I go back here, now this is the one. Okay. So if I go back here, I actually have this. Okay. So what is this now? Now let me see. Would I have that? It doesn't disappear. Okay. So if I show this is the article. I don't know how many of you have downloaded. If you want to take a look at this and then see what data sets they have and then play with that data set and come up with your own conclusion and critique, that would be a very, very good project. Okay, so now I'm going back to my slides. Now, so here's where we are. Okay. Okay, and now let's go to this one. Okay, so in a way, now if I go back to this slide, yeah, I think I can do that. I want to show you this one. I don't have to show you anything, so I will go back to my slide. So you have to set up the environment. Okay, if you have your own lab setup and you bring the setup with you, that's fine. If you don't have that, okay, you want to do something related to what we have set up to do, you have to do these things before you can come up with anything that is meaningful. So you set up the environment. Okay, you have to have the right tools and the right platform. And then for the next 12 hours, basically you do your investigation, your exploration. And then for the next 4 hours, you want to organize your results for presentation. And in your presentation, you want to describe why you choose the brain signal data sets you have in hand. Okay, be it UC San Diego's data set, be it something from your institute, or something from the headset company, if you can get hold of it. And you indicate what is the objectives, what's the purpose of your analysis. And you indicate what methodology you use, okay? And then now I'm talking about the methodology that actually does this, okay? It's not the signal processing algorithms that I have listed before. It's actually this. So let me get back to one of these previous slides to show you what you need to do in this challenge, okay? So basically we're getting back to this chart, okay? We don't need you to do this. We want you to do this part, okay, the data bank part. So a better chart might be this one, okay? So we want you to explore what you have to do here. Are you dealing with a single user or are you dealing with a multiple user? What can you do with the multiple user EEG signals? Are they correlated? Are they totally different? What are the differences? Okay, what parameters have to be registered? Age, gender, health conditions, background, the stimulus, you name it. And what do we do once we get the data? Okay, what kind of analysis you would like to do? Not the processing, not the signal processing, but within the data, what do you do? Okay, and how do you display that? Okay, how do you visualize that? I think some of these headset companies have quite colorful display, and even with UCSF coloring scheme with topology tools, they come up with something that's, that one can handle. Okay, so let's get back to my screen. I think I'm almost at the end. So now let's see where we are now. Okay. Yeah. And tomorrow you will have presentation opportunity, and Professor Shalapin and I will listen to your presentation. And please upload your presentation slides at the beginning of tomorrow, okay? 9 o'clock, before 9 o'clock tomorrow, to allow us to at least have a glimpse or have something in hand to judge. And you are given 10 minutes to present and 5 minutes to answer questions. Okay? So another topic one you can consider is about the standardization I talk about. So here I want to show you the latest version of the standard. This is called CTA 2060. Okay? This is a standard document that addresses the interoperability of database. So this is called a tuned container format. So let me show you what's involved. You could take a look at this and see what you can do with that too. Now, where's my, okay, now let me bring that up. I thought I had that up, but somehow it's closed. Okay, so let me bring this up. I can bring this up really quickly. Now, if I do this, so you would give me a clean copy, okay? And I blow this up so you can read it better. I don't think I can, this is probably the best I can show you. Can you see it?
Yes.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the standard that specifies how the dataset, EEG dataset. Actually, it's interesting. I think some of you are actually from the physiology part. This is, although it's called EEG, it can actually take in ECG, EMG, EOG, signals that you measure about your heart, your muscle, and your eye, your eye or your perspiration. Okay. So this is not limited to EEG. So one might actually think about how EEG works with other biosignals, physiological signals. So in this document, okay, they define the format, and then at the end, they have specified parameters, okay, metadata. You want to share data sets, you need to have metadata, right? So they have metadata specification. And here in this metadata specification, they have identified all these parameters, okay? Channel, measurement unit, location, those things we have talked about, and value, bound, and impedance value, filter. Okay, so this gets into the processing part, and different methods gives you a different outcome. So they actually ask for all these. So if I say I don't really subscribe to those algorithms, am I throwing away any validity of the data set, reference, scheme, and many factors. Okay, manufacturer of the EEG headset, because each of them incorporates different screening, okay, different storage methods. So they have tons of information here, and they have event marker, metadata. You know, you mark your event based on certain stimulus, and beyond that, they, you know, so there's a whole list of parameters they go through. And there's the annex, there's the human subject. You know, what is the condition of the person that you take the EEG signal from? Okay, how do you synchronize your data? And what audio stimulus do you use? What stimulus you use for the eye, gazing, and let's see. Okay, there are more. Okay, motion. Okay, I just want to show you the extent of these parameters. Not to say that you have to read the whole thing, but if anybody who's interested in having this document, I can have that email to you. But you have to let Krill know. You have to give Krill and me your email address. So the documents I've shown you, if you want to have a copy, I can email that to you so that you don't have to stare at the screen and trying. And this is like an eye test, right? Okay, so let me see where I am in the tutorial. I think we're toward the end. So I'm opening up the time for question and answers. Any questions? No. Everything is clear. You know what you want to do, right? You're eager to get on your project, right?
Yes, looks like everyone knows what to do.
Okay, so before you go, before you start, okay, let me just show you one more thing. This is not it. Okay, I guess I have to bring them up. Okay, so this is the evaluation form. I think I sent it to you. I sent it to at least the captain. Okay, so after you finish today and tomorrow, and if you fill out this form, okay, then you can get a certificate of IEEE course number 105004 2 unit. Okay, this CEU stands for Continuing Education Unit. Okay, so you can take this as a souvenir. So if you want this, I think I sent it to your captain. Okay, so the captain, please pass it on to your members. And if they fill this out, they have to, you know, this is actually a review of the course material. Okay, the course material is basically the tutorial, presentation, and the rest of them is all on you to work on the data set. Okay, to do the evaluation, to do the creation of how to look at, how to share the data set. And if you answer all the questions, they're very simple questions. But what I would like to have is to have your feedback on how interesting, how useful this challenge is. So if you check out all these and you return this form to me, to this email address listed down here, then you will get a certificate. Okay, I think you'll like it. And you also will provide me good feedback. With that, I thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great time for the rest of the challenge. And I will see you tomorrow. I am looking forward to listen to your results. And don't forget to mail me your presentation file. Okay?
Okay,
Good luck.
Thank you, Narisa. See you tomorrow.
And Good night for me. Thank you. Thank you, Korea. Bye-bye now.
Bye bye.